There will come a time in your life when you will be surrounded by noise, not just the kind that blares from the outside world, but the kind that begins to echo inside your own soul. It will tell you who you should be, what you should do, how you should live. And in that noise, your truth will try to whisper, quietly, hesitantly, almost afraid. That is the moment to stay silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because your silence becomes your strength. Because when the world is too loud, the only voice worth listening to is the one that comes from within. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. In a world that constantly demands your voice, your opinion, your presence in every conversation, choosing silence can feel like rebellion. But it is in this very act of holding back that we often find our deepest power. When you stay silent, you're not giving up, you're stepping back. You're choosing to protect your peace, your focus, your energy from the things that don't deserve it. Not every battle is worth fighting, not every word needs to be said, and not every misunderstanding must be corrected. There is a certain grace in staying quiet when you know you could speak, when you know you could defend, when you know you could strike back. That restraint is not weakness, it is wisdom. People often assume that silence comes from fear. That staying quiet means you are afraid or uncertain or submissive. But the truth is, silence, when chosen consciously, comes from incredible clarity. It comes from knowing that your worth is not determined by how loudly you argue, or how well you explain, or how much attention you attract. You don't need to participate in every debate. You don't need to comment on every situation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your choices, your growth, your boundaries. And this realization is where true strength begins. It begins when you stop trying to be understood by everyone and start understanding yourself instead. There is energy in you that is sacred. It gets drained when you scatter it across meaningless interactions, when you react to every trigger, when you explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That energy could be building your life, healing your wounds, creating something beautiful, yet it gets wasted in noise. And so, when you stay silent, you're not running away. You're investing your energy where it matters. You're redirecting it inward, where the real transformation begins. You are choosing to create instead of react, to focus instead of defend, to evolve instead of engage in distractions. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. When you stop speaking, when you stop justifying, you begin to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. You hear your own fears, your own longings, your own truth, and slowly you stop being a stranger to yourself. In silence, you become your own witness. You observe your own pain, your joy, your confusion, your resilience. You start understanding that not every thought needs to be expressed, not every emotion needs to be shared. Some things are sacred, meant only for your own understanding, for your own growth. There is also power in not reacting. When someone says something to hurt you, when life throws a challenge that tests your patience, when situations arise that pull at your ego, staying silent doesn't mean you didn't feel it. It means you felt it deeply, but you chose not to let it control you. You chose your higher self. That is power, that is strength, because reacting is easy, responding is easy, but pausing, breathing, holding your center, that takes real control, and in that moment you protect your peace. You keep your energy with you instead of handing it away to chaos. The strongest people are not the loudest. They are the ones who know how to carry themselves through the storm without announcing their pain. They are the ones who rise quietly, who build without applause, who grow in silence, and they understand that silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of strength, clarity, and intention. It is a shield, it is a discipline, it is a statement that says, I choose myself over everything that tries to shake me. Focusing on yourself is one of the most powerful and underestimated things you can ever do. It's not about cutting people off or being selfish or isolating yourself from the world, but about finally deciding to turn inward, to pay attention to the one person you've ignored for far too long, yourself. In a world that constantly pushes you to give more, do more, be more for others, choosing yourself feels like an act of rebellion. But it's not rebellion, it's survival, it's healing. It's reclaiming your time, your thoughts, your emotions from all the places they've been scattered in your attempts to please, to fit in, to be enough. When you focus on yourself, you begin to see all the places where you've been pouring out and not refilling. You start noticing how exhausted you feel trying to maintain appearances, trying to be available for everyone, trying to meet expectations that were never truly yours to begin with. You realize how much of your worth you placed in the hands of others, in their praise, their attention, their approval, and you begin the painful but necessary process of taking it all back. You stop waiting for someone else to fix you, validate you, complete you, and you start doing the work of showing up for yourself in the ways no one ever did. This kind of focus is not loud or dramatic. It's subtle, it's quiet, it's waking up and choosing to feed your soul instead of your ego. It's turning down the volume of the outside world so you can hear your own thoughts clearly for the first time. It's saying no without guilt. It's allowing yourself rest without shame. It's choosing peace over performance, and it's not always easy. Sometimes it means walking away from people you love because you finally understand that loving them doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes it means being misunderstood, judged, labeled as distant or cold because you are no longer explaining your every move. But that's the price of growth, learning to sit with discomfort instead of abandoning yourself again and again to make others comfortable. There's a difference between being selfish and being self-focused. Selfishness takes from others to feed the self. Self-focus gives to the self to heal, to grow, to become. When you begin to focus on your own healing, your own mindset, your own peace, you become more aware of what you allow into your life. You start guarding your time like it's sacred. You stop engaging in meaningless conversations that leave you drained. You stop comparing your journey to others because you now understand that your lane is unique. Your path is yours and no one else is supposed to understand it. You don't need to justify your solitude. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to apologize for needing space. Your growth does not need permission. It just needs consistency. When you focus on yourself, you also begin to reintroduce yourself to your own dreams. The ones you buried to make others feel comfortable, the ones you postponed for years, the ones you forgot about because life got in the way. You begin to reconnect with the version of you that was full of hope, full of curiosity, full of courage. You remember what made you come alive. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And from that place you begin to rebuild, not for attention, not for applause, but for your own fulfillment. You don't need the world to clap for your growth. You don't need to broadcast every step of your healing. Focusing on yourself means doing the work quietly, steadily, deeply. It means becoming your own safe space, your own motivation, your own reminder that you are worthy, not because someone said so, but because you finally believe it yourself. You stop chasing people who never really saw you, and you start becoming the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Not every situation in life deserves your reaction. There is a silent kind of wisdom in choosing not to respond, not to retaliate, not to explain. It takes an incredible amount of strength to witness chaos around you and still keep your inner peace untouched. In a world where people are quick to argue, quick to defend, quick to justify, choosing stillness becomes a radical act. You don't need to fight every battle that calls your name. You don't need to lower yourself to the level of those who misunderstand you, misjudge you, or misrepresent you. Peace is not something you find in the absence of problems. It's something you protect in the presence of them. And often, that protection comes from simply walking away from what threatens it. There's a belief that silence means defeat, that not reacting means weakness, that staying calm means you've been broken. But the truth is, the strongest people are often the quietest in the room. They've learned that reacting to every insult, every rumor, every opinion only feeds the fire, and some fires are better left to burn out on their own. When someone disrespects you, the ego wants to lash out, to prove a point, to defend your honor, but the soul knows that validation from others is fleeting. The real test is not whether you can respond, it's whether you can choose not to. It's whether you can look at a situation and say, "This does not deserve my energy." Reactions are easy. Anyone can shout back, anyone can argue, anyone can type a response in anger. What's hard is pausing, breathing, and deciding to protect your peace above all else. It's understanding that not every story needs your side, not every rumor needs your correction, and not every insult needs your attention. The moment you understand that your energy is sacred, you'll stop giving it away so freely. You'll realize that silence is not emptiness. It's full of intention. It's the deliberate choice to choose your well-being over your pride. And pride, though loud, is often the very thing that leads us away from peace. There are moments in life when staying silent is the most courageous act you can take. When you've been hurt and choose not to hurt back. When you've been lied about and choose not to expose the truth. When you've been misunderstood and choose not to over-explain. These moments are not weakness. They are proof that you have evolved past the need for external approval. They show that you've chosen to rise above the noise, to prioritize what truly matters, to remain rooted even as storms try to sway you. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes, letting go is louder than fighting back. The person who controls your emotions controls you. And every time you react out of anger, frustration, or hurt, you give away that control. But when you remain calm, when you respond with silence or distance, you reclaim your power. You show yourself that peace is no longer negotiable, that you are no longer willing to be dragged into the energy of others just to prove a point. There is discipline in that, there is dignity in that, and with that dignity comes a quiet confidence, one that doesn't need to announce itself or compete or explain. It just is holding your peace in a world that thrives on reaction is not easy. It will challenge every instinct you have to defend, to speak, to correct. But if you can master the art of choosing when and where to give your energy, you master your life. You begin to rise above circumstances instead of being consumed by them. You begin to see that most people speak from their wounds, from their insecurities, from their projections. And none of that is your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to protect your own space, your own mind, your own heart. That protection often begins with silence, with letting things pass, with walking away instead of clashing, with breathing instead of breaking. Growth does not always come with applause. It often arrives in quiet, private moments when no one is watching. It is born in the spaces where you're alone with your thoughts, where the world isn't cheering you on, where there are no lights, no validation, no audience. Solitude becomes your teacher, your mirror, your challenge. It strips away the noise and leaves only the truth. And in that truth, you start to meet yourself, not the version you show others, but the raw, unfiltered soul that exists underneath all the expectations and performances. That meeting is where growth truly begins. There's a misconception that progress has to be loud, that to grow you must announce it, prove it, share every step, but real growth is subtle. It happens when you choose discipline over comfort. It happens when you show up for yourself on days when motivation is nowhere to be found. It happens in the quiet consistency of your habits, in the uncelebrated choices you make that no one ever sees. The world won't see the late nights you spent healing, or the early mornings you used to reset your mindset, or the moments when you chose peace instead of reacting. But those are the building blocks of the transformation. Your undergoing solitude gives you space to feel what you've been avoiding. It gives you the courage to face your fears without distraction, to hear the pain that's been buried under responsibilities, distractions, and noise. It teaches you to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, to hold your own hand through the process of becoming. In solitude, the masks fall off. There is no need to pretend. You realize how much you've relied on external noise to fill internal voids. You see how much time you've spent trying to be everything for everyone, while forgetting the person staring back at you in the mirror. And slowly, gently, you begin to reclaim that person. There is a certain kind of strength that only comes when you've sat with your own darkness and didn't run from it, when you've cried without needing someone to fix it, when you've rebuilt yourself, worth from the ground up, brick by brick, with your own 2 hands. This strength doesn't shout, it doesn't seek attention, it doesn't demand recognition. It simply exists, rooted, quiet, unshakable. You carry it with you in your posture, in your decisions, in your silence. People might not understand the calm in your energy, but it's because they didn't see the storms you weathered in silence. There's beauty in becoming invisible for a while, so you can become visible to yourself. When you're constantly surrounded by people, by opinions, by distractions, it's easy to lose sight of your own voice. But when you step back and allow yourself to be alone, not lonely, you create a sacred space where you can listen to that voice again. You get clarity, you understand what really matters to you. You stop living for the crowd and start living for something much deeper, much quieter, much more meaningful. Solitude is not isolation. It is not sadness. It is not punishment. It is a gift, a pause, a breath between chapters. It is the space where you plant the seeds of who you are becoming. And no, not everyone will understand it. They might wonder where you've gone, why you've changed, why you've gone silent. But you don't owe them answers. The journey of growth is not meant to be loud. It is meant to be real. It is meant to stretch you in ways that applause never could. And when the world finally sees what you've become, they won't realize the quiet, sacred, lonely moments it took to get there. Letting your progress speak louder than your words ever could is one of the most powerful transformations you can go through. It's easy to talk about your plans, your goals, your vision. It's easy to tell people what you're going to do, who you're going to become, how hard you're going to work. But there comes a point where words are not enough, where explanations lose meaning, where declarations don't hold the same weight as quiet, undeniable action. Real change doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need applause. It just needs consistency, patience, and the courage to move in silence while the world waits for proof. There's a kind of peace that comes when you no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You stop wasting energy trying to convince others of your worth, of your growth, of your effort. You understand that the most powerful response is not an argument or a justification. It's transformation. It's showing up every single day, building yourself up from the inside out, staying committed to the journey even when no one is watching. You begin to realize that every step you take in silence, every sacrifice you make behind closed doors, every disciplined choice you keep repeating, is a brick in the foundation of a life you don't have to explain. People often want to be seen as successful before they've even put in the work. They want to be recognized before they've earned their growth. But true confidence doesn't come from external validation. It comes from knowing that you've done the work, that you've earned your peace, that you've kept your promises to yourself. It's not about telling everyone how far you've come. It's about walking into rooms differently because you know the weight you've carried and the work you've done to rise above it. You no longer have to say, "Look at me." Your presence says it for you. Your discipline says it for you. Your calm says it for you. Growth has a way of becoming visible without you trying. People begin to notice the difference in your energy, in your decisions, in the way you speak, in what you no longer tolerate. You don't need to explain the pain that pushed you to change. You don't need to justify the silence that protected your peace. You don't need to defend the solitude that helped you rebuild. Your progress becomes your answer. The old version of you that once tried to prove everything to everyone starts to fade. And in its place stands someone who is focused, grounded, and deeply at peace with not being understood by everyone. You start to recognize that real success is not just about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process. It's about integrity, about showing up when it's hard, about doing the right thing when no one's clapping. It's about building a life that reflects your values, not your ego. It's about trusting the process, knowing that while others are busy talking, you're building. While others are distracted, you're disciplined. While others are chasing validation, you're chasing purpose. And that purpose gives you the quiet confidence to keep going without needing to be seen. Letting your progress speak doesn't mean you hide. It means you shift your energy from speaking to becoming, from performing to living, from convincing to simply embodying the life you desire. People may question your silence, your absence, your change. But when the results begin to show, when your energy shifts, when your peace becomes unshakable, when your life begins to reflect the work you've done, no explanation will be needed. They'll see it, they'll feel it. And by then, you'll be too focused on the next level of your growth to even pause and say, "I told you so." There is a powerful transformation that begins when you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And not everyone will see your heart. Not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will support the way you choose to heal, grow, or protect your peace, and that is okay. The need to be understood by everyone is one of the greatest obstacles to personal freedom. You cannot build your life around the opinions, assumptions, and projections of others. The moment you release the need to be validated, to be explained, to be approved, you step into a freedom that is no longer dependent on external understanding. You don't owe people an explanation for why you're evolving. You don't need to justify why you're quiet now, why you've walked away from certain circles, why you no longer tolerate the same conversations, chaos, or disrespect. You don't need to explain why your energy has shifted, why your priorities have changed, why you're no longer available for everything and everyone. That shift doesn't require permission. It only requires courage. It takes strength to say, "I'm choosing me," even if you don't get it. And that strength comes from knowing your worth without needing it confirmed by someone else's approval. You begin to understand that not everyone has earned access to your truth. Your vulnerability is sacred. Your growth is sacred. The work you've done to unlearn, to rise, to reclaim your peace is not something that needs to be put on display for people who only listen to respond, not to understand. Sometimes silence is the most dignified response. Sometimes distance is the most powerful boundary. And sometimes moving forward without explaining yourself is the most radical act of self-love. The more you grow, the less you feel the need to broadcast your evolution. You just live it, breathe it, walk in it. People will always have opinions. Some will misunderstand your silence as arrogance, your boundaries as attitude, your peace as pride, but their perception is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your journey, your truth, your healing. You've fought too many silent battles to hand your peace over for the sake of being understood. Let them think what they want. You're not here to fit into a version of yourself that pleases others. You're here to become the most authentic version of who you were meant to be, with or without applause. With or without agreement, there comes a time when you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop watering yourself down so you can be digestible. You stop translating your soul into a language that others accept. That moment is when you realize that self-respect is more valuable than being liked, that protecting your peace is more important than being accessible, that walking in your truth is more rewarding than walking in their expectations. And you no longer feel guilty for choosing silence over chaos, solitude over noise, and purpose over popularity. You begin to take ownership of your time, your energy, your boundaries. You stop answering questions that are rooted in judgment, not curiosity. You stop giving emotional access to those who only show up when it benefits them. You stop explaining your dreams to people who have never dared to chase their own. Instead, you focus on the inner work, on the small daily acts of self-respect, on the progress that happens behind closed doors. You focus on becoming so grounded in your truth that no opinion can shake you, no judgment can move you, no misunderstanding can make you doubt your path. The world may not understand your silence, your space, your distance. But you do. You know what it costs to reclaim your peace. You know what it takes to heal in private. You know the weight of the things you never said, the emotions you never shared, the nights you spent holding yourself together. And that knowing becomes your strength. You carry it with grace, not bitterness, with softness, not shame, with pride, not apology. You stop needing others to see the journey, and you start trusting that your soul knows the way